Alright guys, so today we're going to be ranking all of the villains in Battlefront 2. If you haven't seen the one of ranking all of the heroes, I'll put the card up to that now. And right now we're going to start off at the very bottom, work our way up just like the heroes one. Now obviously you see here, it's Iden Versio, alright? And I didn't just put her here because I don't like her in the campaign. I mean, I don't like her in the campaign, but it's not the sole purpose. I've played with her probably the longest out of anybody in these two videos, and I just could not get her to work. I know there's, specific scenarios she's good for. I know she's pretty good in Heroes versus Villains. But if you haven't watched that Heroes ranking video, again, this is mainly focusing on Capital Supremacy and Galactic Assault. So really those troop, infantry, heavy game modes, not really focusing on hero versus hero combat. We will talk about it a little bit, but that's not going to be the main focus. And that's my problem with Iden Versio, is I feel like that is kind of her biggest strength, is villain versus hero combat. She's okay against troops, but none of her abilities are like fantastic for taking out large groups of enemies. And that's kind of why I put her at the bottom. So next up we have Bossk, and these bottom three villains kind of all in the same boat, where I know they can be useful and they can be really good in some situations. I just don't like them, and I'm not any good as them. Alright, so Bossk, while significantly better than Iden Versio, he has the toxic gas ability, which is really good for kind of blocking off an area or just, pulling enemies out of an area. And then his grenade launcher is great for heroes. But when it comes to Bossk, his proximity mines are probably my favorite piece of equipment that he has within his abilities. His blaster's pretty good, it's not fantastic, but again, I just can't seem to find enough scenarios, other than again against heroes, where he's super good. He's not bad, he's definitely a lot better than Iden Versio and better than some of the other heroes in the game, but there's just a lot better villains than Bossk, so that's why I put him so low, and the next one is going to have the same problem. So next, like I said, Captain Phasma. Alright, like I've said with these other two that we've done so far, she's good in certain scenarios. Heroes versus Villains win the whole game just with Captain Phasma. Well, like I said, they're all good at something. They all have their individual thing. But against big groups of infantry units in a realistic big map game mode, just compared to some of the other villains, Captain Phasma isn't all that great. She's good for holding something down, but other than that, just compared to her competition, she just doesn't rank up there with some of the other villains. So next, I put Palpatine, and Palpatine was kind of an iffy one for me, because I know he's good, I know he can be really good, but unlike the other ones we've ranked so far, I had literally never played Palpatine until making this video. I was a level 0 as Palpatine. So I really had to kind of start from the ground up with this one, figure things out. And, I played him in 2015's Battlefront, but his ability set and kind of how he moves is a little bit different in this one. And his abilities, I think, are kind of what makes him higher up on the list. His main attack's decent. He's good against, all of his attacks are good against heroes. His cloud move that you see me using here, honestly not a big fan of that. It's good for big groups of enemies, but unless you really have the right star cards focused on it, you're not going to do that much damage with it. But the main moves I want to talk about are his kind of chain lightning move, which is probably one of the best abilities, if not the best ability, on this villain side. I mean, you can just take out, if you, again, with the right star cards, you can take out so many people with just that one move. It's such a great move to have. And it's good in Heroes versus Villains as well. So that's kind of where I put Palpatine. And this next one might surprise some people. Definitely surprised me, but we're going into it anyways. So next I want to talk about good old Count Dooku. And this is kind of the difference between Dooku and Palpatine. Palpatine, I'm alright as. I understand, why he's good. I get his moves, but I'm not that good as him. But with Count Dooku, I understand Count Dooku. I understand his abilities. I know what his playstyle is, all that stuff. But I hate Count Dooku. Like, out of the, what I would consider playable villains, like the good villains that you could actually stand a chance helping your team with, he's the worst one. Alright? Because at least with Palpatine, like I said, I'm not that good as Palpatine. So I'm sure you got some Master Palpatine main out here. You could probably, you know, put him higher up on your list. But with Count Dooku, none of his abilities are that good for not stormtroopers, for infantry units. Alright? His lightning, unless they're weak and you have it upgraded a whole bunch, won't kill him. His move that slows people down, right? You slow one enemy down. That's not great for, again, anything except for heroes. His only useful ability, really, against large groups of enemies is his duelist ability, which increases his speed. Again, you know, lightning's good if you have it upgraded all of the way and they're really weak, but just for a base, you know, a regular player playing Count Dooku, I think, is one of the more overrated characters. I don't think he's that good. He's on the bottom of this list, and I put him there for a reason, because I've never thought he was good. Like, I like Count Dooku and all, but I never thought he was a viable pick. I always picked others over him. So next we have another villain that is kind of in the same boat as Palpatine. I've played him a little bit. I've played him more than I've played Palpatine. But, you know, I don't know him, you know, greatly. Haven't gotten all of his moves down and all that stuff. But I don't think Grievous is that good. Especially, I know they nerfed him recently and made him a lot worse. But even back before they nerfed him, I just didn't think he was that great. His abilities are cool. He's good, again, in Heroes vs. Villains. And he can damage a lot of enemies at a time with his Claw Rush. And his lightsaber twirling is good for blocking, and he can do some damage if you get up close. But, again, I feel like he's kind of slow. Again, he has that big hit damage, but that doesn't, you know, make up for just how slow he is, and I feel like he's not great for taking on a large group of enemies at once. He can damage them, he can maybe throw a couple of them around, but he doesn't really have any, you know, big KO moves that'll take out the whole group, and so that's kind of why he's still a decent way up the list, but he's not higher up like some of the other people are going to be. So next we have Boba Fett, and Boba Fett is significantly better than I remember him being. If you watch my Heroes video, he's kind of like Luke, right? I remember when the game first came out, him not being that good, because he was OP in Battlefront 1, 2015, right? So they kind of played him down in this one when it first came out. But he's really good now. You know, so one of his concussion missile is kind of useless, unless, you know, depends on the situation like everything else. But his missile barrage and his radar of sensing the enemies, along with his jetpack time and just his blaster's damage, is pretty much perfect. I think Boba Fett is really well done. The only reason Boba Fett is this low is because I feel like he's one of the few characters in the game that the map you're playing on depends on how good you will do. Right? So, say you're playing something like Naboo, for example. This is not a good place to use Boba Fett. Alright, but if you're playing like Endor or Camino or one of those really big open maps you can just get around in really fast, then, you know, he's gonna smack and do significantly better than he would do on something like Naboo or stuff like that. So that's kind of why he's here and not higher up. I think he's good, but he's situational to the map. So these next three, top three, were incredibly hard to rank. I still don't know where I'm going to put these three. But at number 3, we put Darth Maul. Alright? And I really don't have anything bad to say about Darth Maul. Okay? His abilities are all good. His lightsaber throw, they fixed that shit. Alright? It used to be so broken. I don't know, you know, how recently you guys have come on to this game, but you see now when I use the throw, how it's a horizontal spin on the lightsaber. Before, it was a vertical spin, so it was practically impossible to hit even one person. It was ridiculous. But now with it being horizontal, you can usually kill people with the there and back really easily. And if you combine that with his kind of thrust moves where he just leaps at the enemy, you know, and you have 2 of those too, and depending on the star card, you can have more, and they can recharge faster. So you can move so fast as Darth Maul. You can just be all over the place. Combined with his throw, it's really easy to just confuse your enemies and just be all over the place. And what made Darth Maul into this god tier section, this overpowered section, is I don't know who thought that he needed to have the ability to block. But apparently somebody thought that, and they gave him the ability to block. So before, he was ungodly fast, right? And there was a star card, which I used, which reduced blaster damage because he couldn't block. And that made him balanced. He would have been lower on this list if he still couldn't block. But now that he can block, as you can see, you never really need to block because you're so fast. But if you ever get into a situation where maybe your abilities are recharging, or there's just too many of them to dodge, or they have explosive blasters or whatever, you can block as well. So he's kind of just all around fantastic. And the only reason the other two on this list are higher is just because their abilities and their health is even better. So final two, as much as I wanted Darth Vader to be number 1, I had to put him at number 2. And again, it's not anything against Darth Vader. I just think the number 1's abilities just complement each other so well. Alright, but let's get into Darth Vader. He has his lightsaber throw, which is fantastic. Does a good amount of damage. Can really hit a lot of enemies with the right star cards, can make that even better. His force choke, especially with the star cards, can be fantastic. If you focus your star cards on the force choke to where you're doing more damage the more enemies you choke, it's just a fantastic move. You can't move while you do it, and you can't block while you do it. You can't really do anything while you force choke, so it does have that disadvantage. And I'm not sure if it still does this, but a while ago, if you missed the force choke, it would still put you through the animation. So that would kind of be a punishment on Darth Vader's part that kept him balanced. So if you missed, you still have to sit through the animation, you can get shot. But Darth Vader's top ability, that LBRB ability, alright, it increases his stamina, okay, so that he can block more, or attack more, whichever way you want to put it. And it increases his health. And he has an obnoxious amount of health. You can eat blaster fire as Darth Vader, alright? And that's just why he's so high up, because his abilities are pretty solid, he has such a high damage output, and he can receive a high damage input. So that's what puts him at number 2. And the only person who tops him is your boy Kylo Ren. I was constantly going back and forth with Kylo Ren and Darth Vader as for 1 and 2. But Kylo Ren's abilities complement each other so well, and he is so fast, not Darth Maul fast, but so fast that I just had to put him as my number 1. Alright, 1, his pull, it's up there with Anakin's as one of the better force abilities, alright? You can actually kill people with his pull, and that's with not the best star cards, alright? That's 1. But let's talk about his other 2 abilities, which are, in my opinion, the better ones. His freeze, alright? Even if you aren't in the best position to kill the enemies, you can freeze them, and if you have a competent team or a friend you're playing with, you can take out a large group of enemies. And then they finally made his dash attack really good. They finally fixed it to the point where you can slaughter multiple groups of enemies. And what I found recently is, even though it's locking on to one individual with this attack, if there's other individual units in the range of the 3 targets and it hits them, it kills them also. So you can wipe out, multiple people, like 10 people with this ability, as long as they're all close enough together. And let's talk about comboing his abilities. His freeze with his pull is a great ability just to get a large group of enemies. His freeze with his lightsaber thrust move is just, you just slaughter everybody. I mean, all of his abilities complement each other so well. He's very fast. He has a decent amount of stamina. His health isn't the greatest, but I think his abilities are so good that you don't really take a lot of damage due to, individual infantry units. It's other heroes that are going to be the problem for Kylo Ren. But that's my list of villains. Let me know if you guys agree, disagree. Again, if you haven't watched the heroes list, go watch that. Let me know what you guys think of my heroes list, and I'll see you guys on the next video.